running into is how they like set up stuff and how clean their positioning is. And DRX, it played to their strength, right? Because DRX, more so than any other team, besides, again, Kia, which are just looking like a completely different, you know, region of their own. You have like all the major regions, and then you have Kia. Maybe you have some LPL teams, maybe G2's up there, but as a whole, we clearly see that DRX are just exceptional at sniffing out what their win condition is and executing it cleanly. And that's why I was really happy. I was kind of... I think Soka also played the game really well, but it was Kingen who actually got into the backline. And that basically made Henna unable to play the game, as you already pointed out. So, and I think they do that in every single game. Like, they reach a point where maybe they're at a deficit, you know, maybe it's even, maybe they're a little bit ahead, but they know what needs to be done. In that scenario, it was don't let Jinx play the game. Because we said in the draft, you know, it's a 2-carry composition, but if Jinx, you know, she has so much damage available, but then it was never really came, or rather it never really came to fruition. And that's something that Fredit Brion need to fix here. Now, the one upside for Fredit Brion is hopefully that plot armor activates now, and also DRX. Listen, they're not that clean when it comes to like getting a 2-0. Most of their wins are actually 2-1s. And
most, if not all. I think they can lose 0-2, but they never win 2-0. That just never happens. Lilia was left up though, so she's going to be snapped up very, very quickly. And Umpty has had some pretty phenomenal performances on this champion. So already things a little bit difficult for DRX. But now, I mean, you could take Jinx Thresh, Aphelios Thresh. Like, one of these choices could come out, or you can go for the stock standard Nidalee Renekton and just go for that early game composition that DRX don't necessarily fall back to all that often. But still, looking at it right now, the Rel being considered.
Okay, that's interesting, because now you, as DRX, you leave open the possibility for Fredit Brion to go for a Renekton Lilia combination, which is really strong. You take away the Renekton, but DRX is a team that will answer with a Volibear, right? So I think if we do see the Renekton pick up here for Hoya, they will be immediately answered by a DRX Volibear that has similar setup, that has a good head-to-head matchup, and also synergizes well with what we've seen it thus far. Fredit Brion, though, looking to go in a completely different direction, and honestly, I quite like this just pick up. The Aphelios fresh, you know, they hurt you, it's happening, locked it in here, and this does provide an opportunity right now as DRX. You can lock in the Renekton and ban the Volibear, and then kind of go from there. But the fact that Henna will be able to play the game, this game, I appreciate. I think that's a good call.
Yeah, and also Henna has been pretty good at the Aphelios as well. The win rate doesn't necessarily show us exactly that that fact. However, he has been playing decently well, as we are going to see once again Jinx and Rel paired together. Look, it does work in the laning phase, but when you get into late game teamfights, it's just so hard for the Jinx to stay in it. And we'll see whether DRX is going to be able to augment this composition with a little bit more heal. I think Gragas will be very important and something that should be considered for a ban on the side of Fredit Brion.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that can happen here, right? As DRX, you can now go for like a poke, kite back composition if you provide yourself with a beefy front line. Fredit Brion, of course, knows this because I think that Jinx is really good into Aphelios. The main problem with Aphelios is that he's fairly short range, especially when compared to an AD carrier like Jinx. DRX currently are looking pretty hot, but they do need to make sure that Fred and Brion don't find a way to actually get on top of the Jinx. And from that perspective, I think the Galio ban is good, because something like a Galio Camille would absolutely ruin your day here.
Yeah.
And from that point of view, I wouldn't mind. There we go. The Gragas ban, very happy about that, because even as Fred and Brion, if you're looking at Sion here, which honestly, I would be completely okay with, it does create a problem where you won't have reliable way to access Bao. And we saw last game how well DRX did, specifically because they did have that backline access, right? As DRX, you can now lock in the Sion for yourself and just say, listen, Fredit Brion, you don't really have hard engage yet. This is an interesting decision. I'm not a fan.
I mean, this is obviously what they were going to do, because Nidalee's already been locked in.
I know. And I know Nidalee Renekton is strong. Regardless, even with how well they've been playing it, personally, I think the Jinx pick to me says, put your eggs in the Jinx basket, right? Because now you create a situation in which, even though Bao will be able to like kind of kite back and like try and play from range, The DRX composition doesn't actually have reliable front line. A Lucian here would even further exacerbate the problem.
Oh, this would be fun.
That would be juicy, but also I would not like that. I mean, you can go for it. You know,
I mean,
like get.
Well, we were talking about consistent damage, and you know, Kassadin can get into a backline and really mess things up. But this is far more standard, as the Syndra will be locked in.
So now it becomes a question of, can DRX snowball the top side of the map and then create a situation in which it doesn't matter if you get to bow and back up, because like you have a fat crocodile, right? Or nearly spears chunk you for half your health, and they can kite back decently well with the power of the disengage of the rail, and the fact that, interestingly enough, the hard engage from Fredit Brion isn't actually that amazing. They have really good, once it's going on, their secondary initiation is amazing, but Sign, he can get in. But like, it's not like a Gragas, right, that we saw last game where you can flash body slam on top of someone and the fight starts right away. Sign is much more telegraphed, and the Orianna helps with it a little bit, but Fredit Brion still needs to find the right setup to execute these team fights, and the early game prio and power on the top half of the map for DRX are absolutely disgusting.
Oh yeah, I think that early game DRX has this in the bag. They're utilizing the Jinx sort of as a late game insurance policy like we've spoken about many times. However, I don't think the composition works around the Jinx all that well. But this Jinx rel lane we've already seen actually does pretty decently well and can put a lot of pressure on these turrets and the turret plates in the early stages of the game. And all of that helps build these early game leads. But Lilia, coveted jungler right now, extraordinarily strong. I believe that Sion versus Renekton should neutralize towards the top side, even though the Renekton will have that early shove. But if Fredit Brion just hold on, they should be able to be all right. But scaling is a dirty word, and they're going to have to rely on DRX making some errors, I think, around the mid game, which, look, if you've been watching the LCK, it's what DRX have made the name for themselves doing.
They are known to do that. Most definitely, and it's not a place you want to be. As you say, I think that the Renekton is actually one of the matchups where Sign does legitimately have to be careful, because a lot of the power from Sign comes from the combination of, you know, you get a big decimating smash, and then when they try to trade, you can use your Soul Furnace.
Yep.
Soul Furnace, shield not really a thing against Renekton, because you can go for the empowered W and then your shield just disappears. And well, that is not great. Which in practice just means that Hoya is just going to basically be like stuck maybe 25% forward in the lane or underneath his turret. And the same can be said here for Solka, for Yarong, who is in the early game just not going to be able to match the raw power of Syndra. We've seen it time and time again. Syndra trades their cookies and their corrupting stacks just to get perma-shove. And then it's up to Pioshik to get something done. Last game, his early pathing was really, really good, but then they weren't able to actually get anything else out of that, as we see. Oh, that's cool pathing here from Umti, because this can signal one of two things. Either he's going to go for an invade, or he's going to go for an early cheese gank. And this is a pathing that we've seen before, where what you do, you go from your Raptors to your top side, then you clear your top side, maybe look for a play. And then when you come back for your second clear, you will hit a really nice spike, you will get your red buff, and you will be able to contest the Drake greatly. Looks like that's what he's going to be going for here. So nice adaptation coming out here from Fredit Brion. And Umti, he's the instigator. He needs to get it done. He has good setup on the bot lane, but that is pretty much it when it comes to pre-6 possibilities here.
Yeah, you're not exactly going to get any kills off a, command dissonance slow or anything like that. As you can see, Yaharon continuing to lose out on these trades early. This is something that we see all the time, like you were talking about. Let's trade that mana bar for as much lane control as we can possibly find, and that's exactly what DRX want to be gunning towards. As, we're just hoping that we don't see too much action here, as Umti was playing defense, but he's going to go back. Should be able to clear out his bottom side and a Rift Scuttler. As you can see, it looks like Pioshik will be heading towards that top side scuttle, as the bottom lane is pushing forward here for Fredit Brion.
And that's what you need, right? Because you want to be looking for that scuttle. You don't have a mid prior, but if your bot lane is able to join you, you're fine. That is in the case if Pioshik actually does show up. Pioshik will not be showing up because he is towards the top side. And Hoya just needs to make sure, don't trade, right? Like, don't try to get cheeky with the Renekton, and there's no need. Don't get greedy for grass procs, because this is definitely the type of situation where you can get those. I don't know how big the wave that Kingen is going to be able to stack is going to be. But Hoya is full health. This is not a big wave. I think he should be fine.
Yeah, see how well he's actually going to play this, as there's the stun, should be able to put up the shield, but it's not enough. Kingen tanks up the turret and flashes away. The Zombie Scion should be able to tidy up this minion wave, but still, good first blood to go over to DRX, as Hoya is the first target. It's a decent avoidance there from Yaharong, just to make sure that he's not scattered to death, but still taking some orbs as Phase Rush on Sulker is working out.
It's the power of the Renekton in Italy. This is why this combination is so heavily prioritized. But Hoya doesn't actually miss that much, and as long as he's able to keep the wave here and just freely farm up, right, it's a negligible difference. The thing is that Pyosik is able to pick up some gold, so his spears are going to hit harder, and Umti's going to have a little bit less space to maneuver around. But Umti also responded really well by clearing out this enemy bot side jungle. They do have Prio in the bot side, and they've been keeping that on for basically the entire time. Hannah also still has the Infernum available, so that's not going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. Bowling ball going to miss there, as Umti's clearing out this control ward. Very easy for Sulker just to play towards the top side of the map, as Hoya going to get stunned up here by Kingen, who's going to continue to try and put the screws in. Has himself a cull. Understands that, you know, killing the Scion in a 1v1 is difficult. Will need Pyosik to come back, so instead just going to opt into scaling as much as he possibly can. That was some really nice CS underneath that turret. Very happy to see it out of Hoya.
It's the opposite of missing a cannon, right? When
oh,
like
yeah.
they do everything right, and you're just sitting there like, yes, this feels good. I like this.
What do you think the most satisfying minion wave destroying ability is?
That's really hard. Ooh. Recently, I've really been liking the Seraphine double Q, because even as a support, you can you can clear a wave, which doesn't seem like it should be a thing, but it is.
That's pretty good. Do you know what my favorite is?
Hit me.
It's Diana Q on a set of ranged minions that have concaved around a turret. Just the most sense.
Yeah, okay. That's like the, you know, the League of Legends equivalent of a strike. Although I guess now we have bowling balls in the game, so I guess that is the equivalent of a strike, is hitting 5 people and pressing R on Lilia.
Yeah, I guess so. That's like literally it.
Yeah. Maybe that's it, right? Just hitting the good old strike. As Kingen is proxying.
Yeah, and Hoya isn't at the lane yet, and now he's taken the wrong way around. He might be able to get back to the turret, as another minion wave is going to come through. Has to walk over this control ward, as he does have his flash available, but Hoya just going to shield himself up after he knows that the shield destruction is on cooldown, and so he is going to be able to at least make it back to this turret. But as you can see, 2 turret plates already removed, and we're going to have Shelly up in about a minute and a half, and that may just be parked in the top lane as well. Second plate did not quite fall down, as now Umti's just going to move on in, looking to try and challenge for this blue buff. And we're talking about how the top lane is going so well for DRX. The bottom lane is great for Fredit Brion. So they utilize that, get this blue steal, and try and challenge Pyosik as much as possible, and it should equate into this Rift Scuttler as well.
And Pyosik not having the greatest of days here today. Yes, that early dive was really nice, but after that he hasn't really been able to find anything. As said before, Umti was able to capitalize by picking up a couple of camps. Has now built this experience advantage. Pyosik just now hit 6 off of his top side. And that means that Umti, if he's able to, you know, get a couple more clears in and keep that lead going, is going to be fine throughout the rest of the game. He can hit level 9 first. As Yaharong and Sulker, you know, there's a lot of trading. When push comes to shove, not a lot happening.
It looks just going to be traded.
It looks juicy, but if they play well, both of them are going to get Verdant Barrier, and nothing is going to happen ever on the play.
Yeah, that looks like
that's the line.
We might have Merc Treads built up first here for Yaharong. Definitely a decent choice when it's double magic damage in the mid lane. Then you build Verdant Barrier as well, and then you just never have to worry. Like you were talking about, Hannah's going to move here towards the mid lane, as it looks like the Rift Herald is exactly what Fredit Brion want to gather. Just aggressively forcing some mid priority. And as you can see, all 5 members grouped up around Shelly, wanting to make sure that Pioshik's not going to be able to shove down that top outer turret. Bao is slowly getting here as there's the flash in from Umpty. He's putting people to sleep as the train slightly goes wide, but a max range hook is beautiful onto Solka as Henna finds the front line. Shelly's just going to get ignored as now Becker is delivered as a free kill to Hoya. Kingen just being slaughtered. That's a handbag just off the side of the river, and Hoya avoids that spear so beautifully. Fredit Brion come alive around the Rift Herald.
And they get it done. Getting a Filial Svat is a great way to get yourself in a head-first position in this game here. And it's yet again Umti. We keep going back to this Lilia. He's the man who made it happen last time he played this champion against T1, and he does it here again. Starts up the fight beautifully with a great flash Q into a sleep. And from that point on, like, you're already in a disadvantaged position. I think that as DRX going for this play is a risk that I'm not sure if you want to take. You are at a considerable CS disadvantage. Bao is level 5, right? And so is Becca. Whereas both the Light and Hannah are at level 6, so these are super crucial breakpoints that you have hit on the side of Fredit Brion and not on the side of DRX. And this is where we draw the question marks with DRX, right? Like, handshaking these type of fights in the situation where, listen, it feels bad to give up a Rift Herald, but honestly, this is way worse.
Yeah. Especially because the DRX game plan did operate around Rift Herald quite a lot, right? Getting that onto Kingen, allowing him to crash down that turret, get all of that accelerated gold from the turret plates. Like, this is how we see Nidalee Renekton played, and it's around having early game control that does utilize the Rift Herald very effectively. So, Fredit Brion not only win the fight, but also augment their composition with so much more on top of it.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, this is Hoya in a really sad spot. He was keeping up very nicely when it came to the farm. That is stopped. And he's still going to be silent, right? But right now, it's looking pretty sad. So there's the pounce in. And Hoya, yeah, he's just going to take the sad dash and gets burnt down by a red buff as Yaharong's just going to get solo kill in the mid lane. All right.
What?
Okay. That's something that happened. We'll have to have a look at the replay to see how it happened, but it happened. He's going to grab some plates here as well, as Umpty might be able to help and put down a Rift Herald as well, and he is going to... Oh god, this is a disaster for DRX.
Listen, they're bullying Hoya, but they're giving up everything else around the map, getting solo killed by Orianna as Syndra is a cardinal mid lane sin. That's not why you pick that champion. That's not what is allowed to happen, because getting an Orianna accelerated, especially if she has a bot loop resist in the form of Umpty or Hoya, is a really easy way to make your game very, very hard. Unfortunately for Fredit Brion, the fact that they go for that mid lane play does mean that they need to then revert that into, or turn it into backs, and the conversion on the Drake isn't there, meaning that DRX are still able to decently maintain in combination with like Pioshik's pressure on top side has actually paid off in terms of how far ahead Kingen is. So this is still a back and forth. And yeah, Hoya, like, he's getting his own way from the wave here. Like, even if you noted the Nidalee might be around, there's a reason why this combination is so fit. And I think this is also one of the few situations where Sion actually does have a really big problem with doing, especially if he gets no jungle attention, as this is just really straightforward.
Just gets ulted and dies.
Yeah.
And flashes. That's actually pretty cute.
That was really well played, yeah. I mean, it's well played by Yarong, but it's also like, why, Solka, why?
Yeah. It's like the party on the beach ball. That's what he was going for. And unfortunately, this beach ball is a little bit too aggressive. As Henna is going to grab himself yet another turret plate and lanterns his way out.
And one of my issues is that the main value of getting a Renekton ahead is that what he does is he goes in and he pops your backline, right? While simultaneously being a strong front line. But you're playing into a fat Filials, and that's one of the very few AD carries that is like, yes, please come towards me, Renekton, because especially with a fresh, right? Like, he's like, I'm okay with this. Like, that is fine. You can engage onto me all you want, as long as I stay alive throughout the initial burst. Which, oh guys, this is dirty. This is just bullying.
Yep, well, he's going to try and keep the minion wave away from the turret. A teleport is going to come in. That's a decent ulti as Kingen trying to get out. The turret is going to fire off another shot, but it's not quite enough as Hoya, yeah, the zombie version, going to get out of there as Pioshik flashes some SKT. And I believe that was a cancelled teleport as well.
Yep.
From the mid lane.
Yeah, this is getting ugly. Normally, Fredit Brion's strategy to kind of sacrifice Hoya results in a minor CS deficit. But I love that Pioshik and the boys, Pioshik King specifically, DRX here has identified that you can go beyond like just diving the side once and then letting him do his thing, right? Which is what we've seen in the past a lot. Instead, they just focus again and again and again and again. They know Hoya is not going to get any attention from Umti. This has been Fredit Brion's strategy from the get-go. But it does mean in this situation, like, you can't fault Hoya for this. Like, he literally can't do anything about this.
Yep, he tried his very best to try and take down the minion wave and gets a nice double stun. Almost does enough damage to take down King. And we're going to need another nerf onto Renekton, I think, just to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And that is the cancelled teleport like we were talking about.
And I think when the dust settles, it's hard for me to call who really benefits most, because we are getting into the point where, like, Sign can't actually frontline, right? And that is not something we say often. That's not something that we see happen ever, basically. But it is something that DRX have been able to make work. Eventually, Sign will still get there. I don't know how much health he's farmed with his Soul Furnace, but that's why the CS denial was so important. And I can assure you that Grasp also has not had a great amount of value. So that means that it basically boils down to, can Fredit Brion actually deal with this front line? And then, even if they do deal with the front line, can they solve the Jinx issue? Soka, that's the one upside for Fredit Brion. Like, Soka's not really a factor in this game. But, at the same time, if you asked me last game, like, did Soka play the early game well? No. Like, his laning phase was weak. He got killed repeatedly.
Maybe he has the 0-2 power spike as well. Maybe the spirit of Nuggery remains in the LCK. Because
his shockwaves were impeccable. I think it was 3-4 teamfights in a row where he was able to hit Hannah every single time. Yeah. Right? So I think it's too early to call Soka like actually being a really big problem here. I can still see him come back, and you know, if you in your teamfight hit your scatters, completely okay, right? You can still salvage the situation. It's something that they have done in the past. But Fredit Brion are in a situation where you kind of want to like start grouping and go for team fights. But then also, if you do that, Renekton's just going to get parked in the side lane. You can't deal with him. No one can. No one even gets close of being able to deal with him. And then in a 5v5 scenario, you probably are able to, but you are kind of pre-spike, although the one-item spikes have been hit, but I think both the Aphelios and the Orianna ideally are looking for at least 2 items before you start grouping and fighting, so it's a bit of an awkward situation here as...
okay. Sometimes you want to press R, and Soka felt that moment. It is going to be Shirley being taken down here by Umti. Collects that one for himself very cleanly. Double Herald so far for Fredit Brion. We've got about 10 seconds before the Mountain Drake does spawn. Monkey W's in chat for back-to-back Cloud Souls, but hopefully it's going to feel a bit fiery here today instead. And we're going to use the Rift Herald to try and create as much space as possible, and also bully out a bit of control around the Drake. As you can see, a lot of vision and control here for Fredit Brion as they look to take down the inner turret as well. So already a lot of value, even if they can't get control around the Drake. And you were saying, let's group and try and teamfight around something. Well, they've found a dragon to do just that. As speaking of which, Drake's going to get a little bit mad here at DRX, as it looks like they're just going to try and rush this one down. Umti's going to land a bowling ball, but only onto the Drake, as the orb finds Solka. And now Hoya goes in there. Umti now into the backline, takes a lantern to get to relative safety. As is going to be Drake secured by DRX, but the fight is so far going relatively well for them as well, as Pioshik grabs a double kill. The zombie Scion will be taken down. Double kill includes the Drake, by the way, and yeah, those Monk W's certainly working out, as we do get another Cloud Soul.
Aha, we got him. We got the Cloud Drake again. Nice. Honestly, I love what DRX do there, because you see the problem that we got into earlier. Even with Yarong hitting a really nice ultimate, there's 2 things that happen there. One, Hoya is not tanky. A normal Sign in this scenario, probably going to be fine. But look at how little Hoya actually provides here. And this is the payoff from DRX's extremely heavy attention paid towards the top side, because he can't actually really get anything done here, right? The rest of his team needs to respect, thanks to a beautiful ultimate from Baka, even though he dies immediately. And then they don't get to bow. right? Like Hoya dies, he can't frontline long enough for like someone like Umti to maybe get a flash into the back line, hit his sleep, and then go from there.
I mean, Umti didn't even have an opportunity to hit his sleep button. He landed one bowling ball onto Bao, but that was towards the end of the fight after it was already lost.
And this is a problem because you need to kill Bao. He was the one who did most damage that game, and the problem now is that DRX, like this is the ideal situation for this comp where you actually did snowball your top side, and even if you deal with Kingen, who is a threat in of itself, right? Like look at that, that's obscene. Like that is way more gold than the 3-0 Aphelios that's like also been able to like pick up plates left and right, right? So that's insane.
But also, like, Hoya has barely more damage than Delight and Becca right now. Like, the Scion is anemic in this game as Umti throws a bowling ball through and actually just steals farm from Hoya, which feels a little bit bad. Yaharong just getting some work done here on this top outer turret. Solka will meet him up here. But looks like Yaharong's just building for as much damage as possible as Kingen once again just being a bully. Poor little Scion.
So the one upside is I think that Hoya has reached the item spikes where like he has Bramble, he has Steel Plates, and he has his Frostfire. He can stay alive, right? Like he's still not going to do very well. I don't think he can tank the Jinx reliably, but he lives at the very least in a 1v1 situation. But it the problem here is that DRX don't have enough solutions for the amount of problems they need to solve, because you need to solve the Kingen problem. Pyosik is pretty fat, and then you need to get on Bao to go in.
There's a big old play as Becca dives towards Henna, and Henna just sets up with his long-range weapons. Super Mega Death Rocket doesn't really do too much. The flash over the wall avoids Kingen, whose dominance will keep him alive for now, but it's a decent little pick there for Fredit Brion right as the Baron spawns. I probably wouldn't recommend it. However, could make things exciting. They are within 2,000 gold right now as 4-0-1 now for the Aphelios, who did have to invest the flash. But still, this is just more and more money going over to Henna.
And that was super cleanly played by Fredit Brion. I thought when King was going to come over the wall, it was going to be the end of it. But the flash is invested by Henna, which does mean that a Stride Breaker enacted in the subsequent team fight might have an easy time. But you talked about Fresh's or Delight's Fresh earlier on, and here we see the payoff from that, right? Like it is legitimately one of the strongest ones, one of the strongest like performances that we've seen him have, able to so consistently, reliably, and confidently set up these plays.
Yeah.
And here we also see why, even with King playing as well as he has thus far, and then powering a lot of money into him, if you don't 100-0 Henna, he will blow you, like he will murder you violently. He's hit his 2-item spike. I feel like I was saying like 2 minutes ago, like, you know, he really wants his 2-item spike. Well, he has that. That's a good sign for Fredit Brion here. And
he's going to have even more because he hadn't even gone back yet. Let's see what he can purchase.
Oh.
Another BF sword now on top of it, getting towards that Infinity Edge for what is a huge 3-item spike for the Aphelios. I can feel the years start to sink in.
My one caveat here is that Fredit Brion's weakness last game was able to actually set up around Henna being fed and carrying, right? Like, it was a similar situation last time. Of course, then he was Jinx, he didn't have the Fresh available.
Yep.
And I hope that those differences are enough. But I need to see it before I believe it. I want to see Fredit Brion like they're doing right. Oh,
ow!
God, that's painful. Imagine if you have Moonstone here because you have a really nice and reliable, you know, AP source in your Orianna. We're not going to talk about that. We want to see the setup here where you can ensure that Henna can play the game. If Henna can stay alive throughout these team fights, you might be fine. If he dies, you 100% lose. You still need to deal with King, you still need to deal with Bao. It's a lot of questions here, and otherwise it's all point for DRX Atlas.
Exactly. DRX setting up around it, trying to stand behind their gigantic crocodile and raining through these spears from Pyosik, who does definitely hurt. Kingen flying on through, just getting whichever damage he can.
TS Flash.
Yeah. Drake getting mad at Fredit Brion right now as Umti sets up the passive. Throwing the bowling balls through. Good avoidance there by DRX. A Super Mega Death Rocket just to try and soften the Fredit Brion members. Hook goes wide and out in goes Becca with the Magnet Storm. Scatter the Weak doesn't do too much as Kingen gets exhausted. Immediately goes golden, but Becca is going to die. They've traded tanks right now as Kingen's trying to escape, but Henna untouched in the backline. Pyosik does get that soul point. Now it's a 4v4 that Fredit Brion don't look like they want to take. Henna had the short-range guns, which really didn't help them out in that situation.
I think you can push there as Fredit Brion. You still have your Shockwave available, but without that front line, they don't dare and actually go for it. You do have the Crescendum available here, and maybe they want to go for it.
They have a lot of Baron damage with this Aphelios right now, who does have Severum and Crescendum. Delight going down below half, and DRX, they picked up the scent a little bit too quickly. And Spear is going to steal away the blue buff as well. Oh my goodness. Pioshik, why don't you just take their lunch money as well while you're at it? As now Bao's going to help mow down this outer turret, because Fredit Brion wasted so much time at the Baron, they lose way more than just the Drake.
And it's not a play that's ever really going to work out. You don't have anyone who can reliably tank the Baron. You do have a lot of damage, but it's still not enough. And this is what we were talking about earlier. Look at the setup here from DRX. They need to respect, and this is really well done initially. King immediately gets exhausted, but with Hoya being so squishy, there's not really a way for them to re-engage. And I feel like here, you can still make the call as Fredit Brion for like a big play. Try and go in, try and hit the Shockwave. Instead, they go for the lower risk play and peel out there, because if you go in there, right, and you don't get a top of Bao, and like he kills you, you just lose Baron, lose the game. Yeah. So I get it from Fredit Brion's perspective, but I'm starting to see every single team fight is now going a similar way, where they kind of commit, but not really. And then they just lose one or two members, they lose the objective, they back off, they lose another objective, and they keep hemorrhaging more and more. And they need to be decisive. They need to like just go in, like have Yaharong hit a 1 or 2.
I want to see Umpty do more. Like Umpty's been holding these sleeps what feels like all game long, and he misses bowling balls. That's what he wants to set up for the big sleeps. But try flashing in there, getting a Q off, and pressing R Zhonya's, right? Like that's the quintessential play to get as much AoE CC as you possibly can. And that will enable Yaharong to pop off with a Shockwave. That'll enable Henna to have so much more space, but instead, Umpty's sitting back and letting Hoya die, and then they run away.
You still see the glimpses of Bro's powers, though, in these fights, because Henna's positioning has been impeccable this game. The lights on the Fresh clearly been helping him super well. He's adapted very well after the first game. And you do see, like, if Henna stays alive, DRX can't actually, like, they can't actually get anything done, right?
Yeah.
King had to, like, really get out of there as soon as he could. The moment you see you don't 100-0 pop the Aphelios, and that's what I'm going to be looking towards, but as DRX, you have such a big range advantage in terms of, like, at what range you can effectively deal damage. I feel like DRX, this is kind of Gen G-esque, right? In like how much they are able to actually leverage a topside advantage between, like, this is looking like Rascal and Clid on their best, right? Like, not the ones we saw the last series, right? But the ones that we've seen at the beginning of the split, where they just bully an enemy top laner over and over and over again, and it's paying off in these fights. I think this is the squishiest sign we've seen thus far, and Fredit Brion's strategy of completely sacking that top side can still pay off. Eventually, Sign will get there, but it's so much more delayed. Maybe when he fixes his gargoyles, he can, like, stand up a little bit longer. He can actually get into a back line and be a ball carrier, but it's looking rough here for Fredit Brion.
I mean, it is, but it's also only a 3,000 gold lead. Closer to a 2,000 gold lead.
It's still winnable.
By the looks of things. 100%. And Sion, like, yes, they put him behind, but I think when it comes to tanks in League of Legends, Sion is the closest thing to an inevitability you can possibly get. And yes, he was put super far behind. He's still 50 CS behind, but that gap isn't extending. This isn't Kingen now putting the screws in and they're snowballing this game out of control, right? Because it's still Renekton. He still doesn't necessarily have all of that side lane power that you get in something like a Camille.
The next fight is all or nothing for Fredit Brion, right? Because if they're
I feel like it's all or nothing for DRX.
Well, yeah. I mean, the power spikes has been hit on DRX, right? Like, you have 3 items on Italy, 3 items on Renekton. This is basically as strong as, like, this top half is going to be, right? Like, you're not going to get stronger than right now. If somehow, as Fredit Brion, you can find the Hail Mary player, you can keep Henna alive, you can find the pressure, you can get the Drake, and you can keep your Aphelios in a great shape while he deals with the rest of the team. You can delay this Cloud Soul. You might be okay. It's a tough ask.
Well, inner turret going to be taken here. As you can see, Fredit Brion just looking for a fight. They want to be able to take down this Drake as, Kingen's probably going to be able to get towards this inhibitor turret, and DRX have a lot of vision around this Baron. Are looking now for a fight. The Crocodile is flanking, and Fredit Brion do need to know where he is. They do find him. Super Mega Death Rocket does absolutely nothing. But DRX happy feeding just a little bit between choices. And they do lose out on the Drake, and they're not quite able to start off the Baron in time. They are still going to go for it. Whether it's going to be enough is going to be the question, as Fredit Brion still moving their way around. Don't know whether they have enough blue trinkets left, as it's down to half health now. Fredit Brion getting in there.
This is winnable.
It is. Bowling ball once again going to go wide. You've got Flash. Maybe it's time to be the hero, but these spears are raining down. Pyosik is playing so well on this Nidalee as he gets back into the pit. Looks like this could be a potential 50-50, although it is a level advantage as in goes the train. Finds Just Kingin, goes golden, wants to take the lantern, but there's a control ward there. And the Scion is going to be taken down without any follow-up from Fredit Brion. And now, wants to be able to get forward. He's not able to secure it, even with the shockwave to answer. And now Henna down at half health. Delight wanting to help him out there and does so. Kingin slowed down. There's the unleash power from Sulka as Yaharong runs pretty quick, but that's another Super Mega Death Rocket. And maybe these Cloud Drakes are going to be great, because that's the second one we've seen in, I guess, this extended skirmish. And now he's going to go home, but maybe via the Death Chamber, as Pyosik will turn up. He's going to miss that spear. As, question marks indeed, Mr. Umpty.
I love the idea from Fredit Brion there. They tried to set up a situation where, so it's DRX completely peeling away from the Baron there when it was around 2k health. And then as Fredit Brion, what they try to do was like set up a situation where your Scion is kind of zoning people off. You go in and you try and combine the Q and the Orianna Shockwave and the Smite to make that work. But here we see the problem, like Hoya has itemized exclusively for tankiness against armor, right? Like against AD. He's have a lot of armor, but he doesn't have any magic resistance. He goes in there, really nice cancel there with the chompers as well as the ward, meaning that he goes down immediately. But you need vision, you need someone in this pit. This is the setup I was talking about earlier, where they try and like clinch it, get it all at the same time. But Umti, just a second too late, not perfectly coordinated, and now you're just, it's just a chase out. Would have much rather seen Umti just take the execute here. I think that you never ever get the back there. I think if you run just straight into the enemy turrets, you might be able to find yourself an execute here with the amount of time that has passed.
Oh yeah, definitely, guaranteed. It was very greedy to go for the back.
Yeah, I don't think, if you have Baron, if you actually got the Baron, you can get away with that. Now you most definitely can't. And the fact that you have no one who can face tank Pyosik spears in an extended river scuffle like that is a really big problem.
I think, like, I don't know, man. It feels like Umpty, he has his days and then not his days. And today, not really his day. As Lilia, we've seen her be so powerful. Oh my god, speaking of powerful, Henna gets absolutely chunked. These spears are terrifying from Pyosik. He's got his Zhonya's, got his Void Staff. Now it looks like he's building towards a death cap, because why not? Just more damage, please. The bowling ball will connect, but the inhibitor turret will be taken down. Siege minions still here, as the hook is going to go slightly wide. And Umpty, we need more than just fishing with these bowling balls off to the side, off cooldown.
Oh, Hoya!
Can he drift his way into the back line to set up for Yaharong is the question. No, the stun comes through. He won't be able to get that shockwave on top of him. Pyosik down to about half health as Kingin does have the ulti running. Hoya trying to soak damage here, and Kingin doing exactly the same thing. Shockwave lands onto two, but Delight already taken down. Moonlight Vigil for some value, but only onto Becca, and Hoya's also going to fall. Yaharong not finding the value he needed, and this could just be the end of the game, as it's Henna, Umpty, and Yaharong against the world. Oh, well, Henna does a lot of damage, okay. We forgot how many years were represented in this team, as the Spears also doing a fair bit. Pyosik should be able to get to work on this inhibitor on the top side, so the game's not over, but it's pretty close.
Well, that is as good as it gets as Fredit Brion. You do force the flash right here on bow, so maybe in a subsequent fight you can make something happen if Umpty is able, because I think his flash will be up for the next dragon fight. If you're able to find the big flash, find the engage, might be able to make something work. That scatter is so unfortunate, because otherwise Yaharong might be able to actually get something done here. Pioshik with a really well-timed stopwatch, keeping him alive for a really long time. But this is what we talked about from the beginning. As long as Henna is alive, there is a chance for Fredit Brion.
Yeah.
And he stays alive. He has to blow everything, but
I mean, he's been alive the whole series. He's 6-0-1, and
yeah,
they're getting dumpstered in every single fight. It's very unfortunate that you know, Pioshik is landing so many of these key spears. He keeps sending Henna back to base, and that is going to be Cloud Soul locked down by DRX. They have 2 inhibitors dead. This next Baron's going to be up in a minute and a half, and the good news for Fredit Brion is that there's no more Baron buff to worry about. The bad news is that their whole jungle does not belong to them anymore. They're going to have to try and do their very best to just take down these super creeps as they head towards their turrets. Yeah, and hold on for dear life. But I just feel like the window is passing. And look at that damage done.
That's not a surprising one, right? Oh, he did
All right, yeah, they finally get the sleep onto Solka this time, but he survives for so long, gets so much of his damage down. The Aphelios, in the meantime, is going to be obliterated, and Bao in the backline is fighting with Umpty, who's just going to run away, burns down. And good night, Mr. Hoya, who this time around dies last, as it's a quadra kill for Pioshik, who honestly put this game in his backpack and took it all the way to 35 minutes, where they destroy Fredit Brion. One of the first 2-0s that DRX have ever been able to get so far this split.
I'll take this as a win-win, Atlas, because we see 2 things. One, Fredit Brion, indubitably, they've progressed.